pretty observant of what's going on around me. And so we were sitting there, we were just starting, the debate. And I started noticing a lot of activity with Capitol Police and with Sergeant of Arms. I started hearing, you could hear their earpieces, which is unusual. Usually there's no traffic in their earpieces, but I could hear their earpieces because there was one near to me, and it was getting pretty exciting. And unfortunately, I've been in those situations before overseas, and I recognized that there was an issue really quick. In fact, I looked over at Congressman Jason Smith, who was beside me, and I said, something's happening. And he goes, what? And I said, something's going on. And then it was just a matter of a minute or so later that people started looking at their phones because Twitter's feed started going off. I don't get alerts on my Twitter feed because that would drive me nuts, but a lot of people do. And that was my first indication that something was happening. And then things started moving pretty quick then.
So you are where in the chamber at this point?
First, I was second or third row. I think I was the second row on the front, on the Republican side, on the right side, kind of towards the middle.
And where are the police officers that you are able to hear what's happening in their earpieces?
Well, they were running up and down, not running, but they were moving up and down the aisle. So I was sitting right on the aisle in the middle section on the side, and they were going in front of the aisle and then right in the what we call the well, which is the front part. And so it was clear that something was happening. And then the lieutenant came to the mic and said that and I'll just kind of start walking through it. The lieutenant came to the mic and he said they have breached the Capitol and they're in the Capitol building. They're in the Senate. We have a feeling that they may be coming this way. And then about that time, they came rushing in and rushed out Pelosi and I think Scalise. I know McCarthy wasn't there. I don't know if Hoyer was there or not, but I know Scalise's guys came in, and I know Pelosi's guys came in, and they took them out. At that time, Lieutenant came to the mic and said, "We're going to go on lockdown, and if they breach the floor." Or if they breach the door, he wants everybody to lay down. And as I said, I've been in these situations before, unfortunately, similar, nothing exactly the same.
Can you explain for people who don't know your background?
I'd probably prefer not to, and I'm sorry. I just don't want to get into that. But he said for everybody to get in and lay down. And I stood up at that point and I said, "Sir, you're wrong." And I turned around to everybody and I said, "Do not lay down on the floor." I said, "Everybody, if they hit that door, we need to go out those doors and down those steps." And then the lieutenant walked over to me and I said, "Sir, I mean, no disrespect, but you don't lay down during a riot. That's how you get people killed. People are going to get stomped. They're going to get walked over. I mean, people that get hurt are the people that lose their footing during a riot." And he understood that, and he was very receptive. And like I said, there was still a lot of noise going on in his earpiece, and he was trying to make decisions the best he could. What my observation is that Capitol Police and Sergeant Orange did the best they could, and they were doing the best they possibly could with the training and equipment they had. The problem is that they weren't really trained for it, and they had no contingency plans on how to get members or get people off the floor in a case like that. The first thing you have to do is have a contingency plan. When you're dealing with a situation like that, you should have a contingency plan A, B, and C, and each one of your contingency plans should have a contingency plan on how to do it. It was very evident right off the bat that they didn't have any idea how to get the members or get the staff off the House floor, but they were willing to react. And so what I enjoyed about it is the fact that Capitol Police and Sergeant Orange was willing to do something. They never froze up. They're willing to react. but they didn't actually have the training or the protocols put in place to be able to do what properly needed to be done. Now, anytime you go through these situations, you can always debrief them 50,000 times and come up with 50,000 different solutions that you could have done better. So they were doing the best they could in those situations. And when I started explaining to the lieutenant, just in brief, I mean, very brief, because things were happening very quick, he was very receptive of it. But by then, they had already put us on lockdown. It was just a matter of seconds before we heard them hit the first set of doors. Which
doors are you talking about if you're looking at?
Well, if you're coming out of the statuary hall, running to the house floor, there's two sets of doors. So there's doors right in the hallway. Then there's a small gap, like a small little foyer. And I don't know if you even consider it a foyer, but it's a small little area where you walk up a couple steps before you enter into the actual chamber. And there's a set of doors there. So the first set of doors are the ones that are actually in the hallway. And we heard him hit the door. I grabbed one of the Capitol Police individuals, which was on the detail. So he was in a suit. So he was part of someone's detail. And I actually think he was part of Scalise's detail who stayed behind. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it was. We go out, or we run over to the Republican side corner and grab a desk, and we bring it over there to put it in front of the doors. And then someone else grabbed a bench and put it on top of it. So we stacked furniture in front of the door, and you can see pictures of that. And then the sergeant came back on, and he said that they've deployed tear gas and wanted people to put the gas hoods on, because underneath every chair there's gas hoods. Problem is, and I've joked about this for years, is we have all these gas hoods and stuff, but they've never showed us how to do it. They never showed anybody ever. Once again, lack of training, which was that was a failure of leadership. That wasn't the failure of the guys that were in there working. They were doing everything they could, but it was a lack of contingency plans, and they failed at it. And they told everybody to put their hoods on, but no one knew how to put them on. And then there was a huge issue with people trying to put them on. I kind of question the fact that we needed to put it on anyways because of tear gas, because they deployed the tear gas in the rotunda and nowhere near us. So sometimes when you do that, you actually cause people to actually panic a little bit, but no one did. The members handled it very well. Capitol Police was reacting. Like I said, they weren't doing nothing. They weren't freezing up. They were reacting the best they could without clear direction. And then just a second later, they broke through the first set of doors, and then they hit the second set of doors. Now they're right there. And
Are you still right there, Congressman?
Yes. Myself and Troy Nils were two congressmen. Troy Nils, Sheriff Nils, were the two members that were right there. Because when I stood up, I went to the back of the room because I knew I could be of assistance. I knew I could be an asset. I wasn't trying to do their job for them. They were going to do their job, and they were going to do what it took they were going to do their job, what it took to protect us. And I felt very confident in that, but I also knew they could be easily overran. And so I went back there to try to be an asset. Some of these guys that were back there were friends of mine. Some of these guys I've talked to multiple times. And we've talked about certain cases and certain things that we've done in the past. And so I knew these guys. And so when I stepped back there, I actually took off my tie and took off my jacket, and Sheriff Nils, he stood up and he said, "Are we doing this, brother?" And I said, "Do we have a choice?" And he immediately jumped in right beside me. And then Tony Gonzalez jumped in. And then I believe it was Ronnie Jackson. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was Ronnie Jackson who also was going to be a willing participant and help keep them from breaking in. It was just a second later that they, I think it was just a second later that they broke the glass. And when they first broke it, they used a glass punch, and it sounded like gunshots. And they started yelling, "Shots fired, shots fired." And I actually thought shots were fired too. And I jumped because behind the chairs, behind the chairs have Kevlar behind the chairs, which are bullet resistant. And they're designed that way just because of the shooting we had, in the chamber back in the 50s. And so I jumped behind there, and then I quickly realized that was a glass punch because I looked at the holes, and you could clearly tell the holes, they were from a glass punch. And so I yelled back, "Don't shoot," because by now, all the Capitol Police has got their guns drawn and they're yelling. And by the time you present your weapon like that and you're in those kind of situations, I'll tell you, Capitol Police showed great restraint by not opening fire because everybody thought shots were fired. And for the fact that they didn't discharge their weapon when they presented the weapon, they were using their head. They were thinking, even though they may have lacked training, they didn't lack discipline. And the Capitol Police showed great restraint in that. I mean, there's a lot of situations, especially overseas, that in those circumstances, shots would have started being firing in the opposite direction, and people would have lost their lives. So Capitol Police did a great job by showing restraint.